Hello and welcome back to the RevOps Show. Your customer experience has already started and it never ends. So what exactly does that mean and how can you make a more positive impact? Doug and Jess are discussing all of that and more today. They even get into the behind the scenes of Imagine and what our experience is like and where we could even be improving. So if you want an inside look, this is definitely the episode for you. Before we get into it, I would highly recommend you go grab a snack. There's a lot of food examples that will make you hungry. I can attest. I would know. I had to grab a snack. So, forewarning. And with that, let's get started.
Jess.
Doug. It's a Friday podcast recording. Are you excited?
Can you put me out of my misery?
I cannot.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Still working on that pause button.
You know, I'm not complaining, Jess. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying if we had that, when did I assign that to you as a KPI, as a OKR?
Well, so I had mentioned to you, I was listening to some old recordings and we were actually talking about that OKR, and that was over a year ago. So I think that was assigned to me.
Old then.
That was old then. Yeah. So I think it was assigned to me about 3 or 4 years ago as an OKR.
Have you made any progress?
No, none whatsoever. I need a pause button so I can create the pause button.
I guess it's my fault because you keep getting promoted and raises, even though you basically totally ignored this OKR. So I'm kind of positively reinforcing that behavior, aren't I?
You are. And I think that is the driver of my success, is not having created pause button.
You're gonna have to think about that one for a little while. Well, Jess, I don't know what it's like in San Antonio, but it is just dreary and rainy here in beautiful outside of downtown Severna Park.
It is 91 degrees and sunny here. It was rainy a few days ago, and I had a feeling it was going to get hot because it usually does after a
Are you guys supposed to get rain this weekend?
I don't even know. We need it.
Has the humidity come in yet?
Oh man, has it come in? Yep, it's bad. Hot and humid.
There you go, and it's only getting worse.
Exactly. All right. I want to talk.
You want to talk about the humidity in San Antonio?
I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. It makes me angry. I want to talk about customer experience though today. I want to talk about customer experience and RevOps role.
Customer experience, Jess. Tell me. I'm going to sit back and tell me a bedtime story about customer experience.
I don't think I can tell. I don't think it would be a good bedtime story. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, man. It's hard, especially when you're scaling a business. It seems like it's 10 times harder.
Actually, I think customer experience is effortless. It doesn't matter what you do. The customer has an experience.
There we go.
The experience is always there.
I don't even know where to go from that.
Wow,
You left me speechless. What can I say? Well, I think where I want to start, I was going to ask you what customer experience is, but I'm worried for the answer I'm going to get to that.
What prompts the conversation for you today, Jess? Why is this on your mind?
So this is probably on my mind more than anything because as we've been working on things internally and working to improve some of our processes, I am thinking about how could we improve our customer experience and where are the friction points for them and where are the places that we could reduce some of that friction.
Oh, so we're going to talk about friction again.
I don't know if we can have an episode without talking about friction.
What does friction have to do with RevOps? I mean, so what is customer experience? It's the experience that the customer has. I think, part of the problem is, customer experience is one of those terms. It's not like strategy where everyone knows the word, but nobody knows what it means because it means something different every time they use it. Customer experience is one of those words that everybody, like they understand it, or at least they think they do. I think that the understanding across people is pretty close. But the moment you try to put it into words to give it a,
Definition.
a definite, a meaningful definition, it tends to fall into, I think, what was it? The Supreme Court definition for obscenity, or something was, I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it, or something like that. It wasn't obscenity, but it was something,
Yeah.
It's one of those things, like, I can't quite tell you what it is. And the reason is, I think it is the market facing equivalent of the word culture, or the term and concept of culture internally.
Mm-hmm.
And so the difficulty is, anytime you try to talk about culture, you start talking about the individual components of culture, and culture always has an X factor.
Yeah.
But it also has a Y factor, or let me call it a Z factor, because I don't want people to confuse Y as like the question why. So the X factor is there's a magic that, to a culture. You can't achieve great culture. I mean, being purposeful is helpful. It's actually kind of interesting. I think to have a great culture, to have a great customer experience, you have to be purposeful. But I think if you're too purposeful, you're less likely to have it.
Why?
It's like riding a wave, Jess. As your local surfing expert, Jess, what's happening in 15 days.
What? Some kind of surfing competition?
No. What's happening in 15 days, Jess?
I don't know. I don't know.
Aloha.
Oh, that's right. You're abandoning me.
I'm going to Hawaii. I think spend some time on the North Shore. Bring in my surfboard.
For my wedding anniversary, you're going to Hawaii.
Wow, we should have known we were going to talk about this. I could have had the Beach Boys queued up.
You could have.
Hannah, add the Beach Boys so that we can get sued for violating. So much of life is influencing the experience and letting the experience influence you. It's like, controlling your environment and riding what it is. If you try to, if you're overly purposeful, so again, there's no direct path to where you're going. There's an accident. There's a role that luck plays. There's a role that situation, there's an unexpected level. By the way, every great culture has something uniquely dysfunctional about it. Every great customer experience has something uniquely dysfunctional about it. And by the way, you see this, look at companies that have great customer experience. Starbucks comes to mind. I don't think anybody says that the customer experience at Starbucks is what it was. And at one point, the customer experience at Starbucks was what you bought.
Yeah.
Right. And so, if anybody could recapture the brand of customer experience, shouldn't it be somebody that already had it? Right. So like, you can't, so you're like, and I think if it's kind of the difference between leadership and management, right? So there's an element. So there's a chemistry, there's a chemical reaction that is going to happen. So it's an accident, right? There's a great culture. There's a degree of accident in it. There's also a degree of luck.
Yeah.
Timing, situation. Thing about employee experience. A couple years ago, there were some leading companies in the employee experience place that were professing the 4-day work week. And now everyone, in this echo chamber of MarTech is talking about the 4-day work week. And I just saw somebody make some big, goofy, stupid announcement on their LinkedIn. We're no longer doing casual Fridays. We're no longer doing beer Fridays. Because we're closed on Fridays. We're going to a 4-day week. And it was just like, screw you. It was just like, so, and I don't know who they are. Maybe they're a great company. Maybe they've got great, I don't know, but it just felt so much like, hey, let me let me jump on board. So there's just that aspect of you've got to allow, a great customer experience is a unique experience.
Would you say it's also a flexible experience because you threw out influencing the experience and letting the experience influence you? So are you saying you've got to be flexible and let the customer be your guide, if you will?
No, you can't yes, the customer is your guide, but if you listen to the customer, you're not going to create a great customer experience because the customer doesn't know what they want. The customer didn't want an iPhone. I mean, here's a great point. Ask somebody, do you want more choice or less choice? What will they say?
Less. They'll say they want more choice.
Right.
But they don't want more choice.
Right. But would a computer that gives you no choice, or the computer that can be whatever you want it to be, which one are you going to choose? I want more flexibility. I want the choice. No, you don't. Because when Apple took out the floppy disk, everyone said, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And more Macs got sold.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you who gives a great customer experience. And this to me, actually, I can tell you this is the definition of a great customer experience. I actually can give you definition. Are we going
to talk about Zappos? Could be off. No. Okay.
Why Zappos?
Because I thought you had a great experience with them anyway, go ahead.
What was that? I like Zappos. I buy my shoes on Zappos.
I think it was a pair of shoes that you bought that came wrong and they did you right.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. No, they're that's customer service more than customer experience. Like, you know what my customer experience with Zappos is?
What?
I don't really have one. I buy my shoes from them every couple of months because I walk all the time.
Yeah.
Right. You know what my customer experience with Amazon is? I don't have one. Everyone talks about Amazon. I mean, Amazon's got shit customer service, and everyone talks about great customer experience. You know why? Because I'm going to tell you what great customer experience is.
What's that?
Every customer wants the exact same thing. They want what they want when they want it, preferably without having to ask. That's all I want. I want what I want when I want it. And oh, by the way, I don't always know what I want. And a lot of times what I tell you I want isn't what I want. And a great customer experience is when you give me what I want and I don't have to ask for it. Four Seasons is great at that. Four Seasons is great at that. You know who else used to be great at that? Walmart used to be great at that. Walmart used to give a great customer experience. Now, I hated it. I've never actually been in a Walmart in my life. But Walmart used to exist for the person who lived paycheck to paycheck. And it was built for them. And it delivered to them.
Yeah.
Apple gives a great customer experience. My brother hates Apple. Hate might be too strong. You know what? My brother is completely indifferent to Apple because he has to care about Apple to hate it.
My husband hates Apple.
Right? So remember, hate is a lot closer to love than indifference is. But so here again, what we go back to is we go back to choice. I think that I think that customer experience is this really interesting place where, frankly, like lots of energy is wasted.
Why is it wasted?
Well, and at the risk of being very easily misunderstood, and theoretically, one of the roles of this podcast is to spread our message and attract people to, wow, aren't we great? Because I think that people look at customer experience as a holy grail. I think that very often I think lots of money gets put into customer experience, lots of time and energy gets put into customer experience, and it doesn't actually move the needle. And then someone says, well, what's the role that customer experience plays at Apple? And I'm like, yeah. How many $2.7 trillion companies are there in the world? And by the way, if you take a look at it, what does Four Seasons sell? Four Seasons sells the customer experience. That is what they sell. And the reason that a long time ago, one of my first popular blog posts, which I think meant we cracked 10 readers for it. It actually got outside of my extended family. Someone not related to me read it, was defining, what is a remarkable client experience. And I used Four Seasons as the example, and I got a lot of feedback on it. And what I saw was everyone took the interpretation that, Four Seasons, Apple, premium, upscale. And that's why I wrote a follow-up post where I talked about Walmart has great customer experience. And I think that people look at Walmart and they would not, like, when you think Walmart, you don't think great customer experience. Again, except that I think there's two things that are massively important if you're going to focus. Let me finish one thought. I think customer experience is a good to great and probably even a very good to great discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like you've got other stuff broken
that needs to be fixed.
You can't even create a great customer experience, right? So by the way, the other place is customer experience falls to platitudes. It's one of the great lands of platitudes. Delight your customer. Provide a wow experience. Always exceed expectations. So I think that two things need to happen. There are two elements that are absolutely required for a great customer experience, and one is deep understanding of your customer. Who is your customer? And let me tell you, if you want to provide a great customer client experience, you need to know your customer better than you do to sell well.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And I meet all kinds of companies that want to, who strive and spend money and work to create a great, and they don't, they don't understand who their customer is. They don't see the world through their customer's eyes. Because customer experience is defined by the customer. It's like brand. You don't define your brand. By the way, your customer doesn't define your brand. It's everybody that comes into contact with you and says or does anything about you. They define your brand. So one is you have to have a deep understanding of your customer, and the other is you have to have a deep understanding of, and you work towards expectations. Who is considered to have a great customer experience, and certainly from a satisfaction and loyalty standpoint in the world of airlines, was always referred to as the, great customer experience, Southwest Airlines.
Yep.
But you know what else Southwest Airlines was referred to back when it was called the great customer experience, and when it was referred to as having great client or customer experience, it was called the Greyhound of the skies, right? Why did Southwest Airlines, that gave you less, why were people so much happier with them? Because they promised a whole lot less.
Yep.
Right? They didn't promise this luxury experience. They didn't promise this aspirational experience. So people tend to tie, experience to aspirational. I mean, we worked with a company that the CEO, you worked at a company. One of my favorite stories is a story about your old boss where he showed me a new brochure. It was not just brochure, it's like a whole corporate book.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was beautiful. It was high gloss, etc. I said, you can't use this. He's like, what do you mean? Yeah. I said, this needs to be on a matte finish. You can't do high gloss. He's like, what, you think it'll look better on matte? I'm like, no, it'll look worse on matte. But what this is saying is
you're expensive, is
luxury and expensive. And what your customer cares about is controlling costs.
Yep.
Right. So one of the reasons why I don't think he ever got the stability that and he worked hard for it.
Yeah.
And one reason he never got it was because he kept trying to dictate what the experience should be rather than understanding, no, this is what people want.
Right.
And the number of times that I see people doing all kinds of things that are wonderful from an experience standpoint, kind of, sort of, but like, that's not what I'm here for. By the way, why? One of the reasons why I go to Zappos to buy my shoes?
Why?
Because there's no experience.
You don't want an experience? That's what you want, is no experience.
Yeah, think about this. What's the ideal experience when you purchase a pair of shoes? Especially if you're buying the same pair of shoes that you had before because they worn out. What's the best experience?
It's easy. They fit. They
completely and totally forgettable.
Yeah, non-event. Yeah.
So if you think about it, anything I notice about the experience is wrong, is bad.
Yeah.
Like, why do airlines have a problem with experience and with satisfaction?
Oh.
What's the ideal flight? By the way, there's two reasons. You do know a lot of people say that airlines don't have a customer service philosophy. They do have a customer service.
They do, because I used to, especially because I used to work at the travel.
Do you know what their
industry.
Customer experience philosophy is?
Get as many people on the plane as possible.
No. It's actually very clear service philosophy. We're not happy until you're not happy.
You're not happy. That's right.
So think about this. What's the ideal flight? Leaves on time, arrives on
Time.
time, and get there safely, and no turbulence.
Yep.
The flight I remember is a bad flight.
Yep. 100%.
Right. So the desired expectation is nothing. Well, guess what? First off, you can't exceed that, and secondly, that's a really hard thing to manage. Right. And then thirdly, and I've seen all kinds of airlines waste all kinds of money on the idea of experience.
Oh, yeah.
Thirdly, the airline that gives me the great experience and the airline that gives me a shitty experience. Oh, that airline with a shitty experience is $5 less. Guess what? That's where they go and they buy. Right. So,
yeah,
we work in multifamily, right? And there's a lot of debate around customer experience, and and obviously that's where somebody lives. So it's like to say experience doesn't matter is not true. But if you think about it, the only thing in the vast majority, there are edge exceptions, but for the vast majority of people who are renting an apartment, a customer experience can cause me to leave, but it's not going to cause me to renew.
Right.
Oh my God, I have to move 3 states away. Like my job's moved 3 states away, but the experience here, I'm staying here. I'll just drive to work, right? And again, I'm exaggerating for effect. So like, by the way, what role does revenue operations play towards that?
Yeah.
Some of it is that revenues, well, first off, there's a larger strategic element to define what's the game we're playing, what's the playing field, what are the key drivers. Are we anchored, are we anchoring around operational excellence? Are we anchoring around superiority? Are we anchoring around co-creation? Are we anchoring around enrichment slash experience? So, if you're selling premium coffee, what customer experience means to you is something very, very, very different than if I'm a gas station that happens to have coffee, right? So, like all those things come into it. And I think to a large part, again, if you go back to one of our definitions of what is the role of revenue operations, it's, to lead the managing of the trade-offs to solve for the customer and meet the objectives. Right. And the thing that's interesting is I see far too often the customer experience is narcissism in the guise of empathy.
Wow, we're feeling in a positive mood on this Friday.
I am salty.
sunshine and rainbows today. You just prompted something that I wasn't planning on going here, but where you talked about the anchors. I mean, so is part of RevOps' job to help clarify what we're hiring for. So like I think about when we talk about jobs to be done, we often talk about the McDonald's example. I can't remember the guy's name who talked
Ray
about this.
Kroc, Clayton Christensen.
Yes.
Which one?
Well, where he talked about the milkshake.
Oh,
with
Clayton
McDonald's.
Christensen, yeah.
Clayton Christensen. Yeah. So
by the way, I don't think he ever in anywhere actually says it's McDonald's. I learned it was McDonald's.
Oh, okay.
So if you read any of his stuff, it never says.
It got put in my head McDonald's. So he talked about a fast food restaurant and people were buying milkshakes.
He didn't even say fast food, but go on.
Yeah, what are you hiring the milkshake for? Right. And I have a lot of our new employees watch that so they can understand jobs to be done. And it's a ridiculous prospect of what are we hiring a milkshake for? Like when you think about it on one hand. On the other hand, you need to know that so you know what do you want that client experience to be?
Well, but if you also think about it, it's not actually ridiculous. And by the way, it was worth billions of dollars. So there's
no, I'm just saying on its face when you say that it sounds crazy.
But so here's the thing. So what's the customer experience? So I'm buying a milkshake because I'm using it. The job I'm hiring it for is a distraction for my commute. So how thick should the milkshake be? Well, if it's too thick, then I'm going to get frustrated. If it's too thin, if it's too liquidy, then I'm going to get through it too fast. Yet if I'm with my son in the afternoon and I've told him no 3 times, and so he says, Daddy, can I have a milkshake? And we go, okay, you know what? I probably want the milkshake to be a little bit thicker because And by the way, you know what you'll find out? Dad with their son or daughter who bought that, is buying them a milkshake late in the afternoon, and they sit down. That might be the only time in the week that they actually talk to each other without an agenda.
Yep.
And so I want it to be thicker. I don't, and like all of those
Right.
things come in, and that's going to define what the experience is. Yeah, absolutely. The job to be done, though I don't think job to be done is like to say RevOps' job is to be the job to be done police or people. I think that's everybody's job. But I
Right.
do think, and this is going to get misunderstood because we're going to talk about this in a future episode, because someone referred to RevOps as a wartime discipline. And I was like, whoa, RevOps is a wartime discipline when a company is in trouble. Every good organization needs a son of a bitch.
Where is that coming from?
I'm working on a project that I'm not ready to tell people about, but and I'm not the first person to profess this. I'm not saying this is original by any means, but one of the things that I refer to is, companies don't have growth problems. They have story problems.
Yep.
Right. Doesn't that feel warm and fuzzy?
It does.
What's the vision? Where's your innovation? How are you distinct? Those are all big concepts.
Yep.
Right. And especially, when you're dealing with strategy and direction, we need to align our vectors. Like we could talk about that forever. Like that, like we're filled. Hey, you know what? We're doing this because, right?
Right.
Personalize. Okay. So how much time should I spend on research? Somebody needs to, like, all that is true. And you know what else? All that doesn't mean shit. And so somebody needs to be the one that kind of sees through the platitude. I do think that RevOps, a good RevOps person, has a dose of skepticism. Now, skepticism is distinctly different from cynicism. They can look and feel the same.
Yeah.
A lot of people say I'm a cynic, and I'm actually not a cynic. I'm way too optimistic to be a cynic. I would have burnt civilizations were I a cynic. I mean, it'd be dangerous if I was actually cynical. I am a skeptic.
Yeah.
Right. We were talking with our client in the home building industry, and he gets the upside of technology and this. And we were talking about the fact, one of the things that makes him such a good leader is he also understands that that's all good. That's all nice. But that's all accoutrements around the end. They make degrees of difference. So they're valuable, but it's really easy to get lost into that loop. And so I think RevOps' job is to say, okay, where's the trade-off? Are you ready for this? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
There it is. We got it in.
Right. And it's also easy to get lost in, I think a great metaphor for customer experience and designing a customer experience is parenting. Because by the way, if you're too purposeful as a parent, what's going to happen to your kids? They're going to be a mess.
They're going to expect, but
they're going to feel controlled. They're going to feel like you're a helicopter, right? Oh, okay.
Yep.
If you're too loosey goosey as a parent, they're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
If you're just right, they're going to be screwed.
You're going to be less.
So you're going to suck less. You're going to screw your kids one way or the other. Doesn't matter. Right. You can't purposefully raise great kids because you can do everything right. And you don't have great kids. And all kids are great, by the way, for the record, all kids are great. But you know what I'm saying? There's an aspect of you try to create the environment that enables that to happen. That's what you can do. Because what I see happening, what's the role of friction? Eliminate friction, eliminate friction. Friction in customer experience is bad. Ready for this? Bullshit.
Why is that bullshit? Because that's something I think everybody goes to is wanting to eliminate all the friction in the customer experience. Why is that bullshit?
Is a 2-hour line friction or not?
A 2-hour line for what?
You have to wait in line for 2 hours to buy a dozen donuts.
Yes, that's friction.
Then someone explain the new Krispy Kreme that opens up. Is running out of the product friction or not? Then someone explained to me the craze for Popeye's new chicken sandwich, which had a 2-hour line, and you might not, and they might be out of it by the time you get there.
Yep.
And I don't care what anybody says. Part of the reason that you wanted that chicken sandwich was because there was a 2-hour line. You know what Yogi Berra says?
He says a lot of things.
That place is too popular, so no one goes there anymore. Right. would Starbucks be Starbucks without the line?
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of the experience is, and by the way, I drink Starbucks coffee, so I wait online for my coffee. I don't walk into some 7-Eleven and just self-port, right?
Yeah. So you're saying we want to all wait in line because you're saying we want friction.
No, I'm saying that in the same way, if I were to eliminate all friction for my kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I mean, the research is clear. Every child will say they don't want to be told what to do,
Right.
except they do want to be told what to do. And then as we get older and we move up, I mean, let me ask you a question, Jess. Remember when you didn't want to be told what to do?
I do.
How many times do you feel right now, I just want someone to tell me?
This isn't fair because we talked about this earlier today. Yeah, no,
Right?
I wish someone would tell me all the things all the time. Yeah.
Now, by the way, if Dunkin' Donuts started having those lines for coffee, no, that's not a good customer experience. So again, it's, you know, it's what are you crafting? You know, and by the way, when Starbucks started doing a couple of other things, you know, fell back over here and there, all of a sudden, like I remember when I would travel, I'd be in an airport and I would look for the Starbucks. Like there was one time I think I walked the entire airport and I found the one Starbucks. And then, you know, they stopped doing the things that made them Starbucks. And then all of a sudden it was like, nah, I'll just get this. So, you know, it's not just the line. Yeah. I've said before that everything that is distinct, everything that is great is friction, is a friction experience.
Yeah.
So going back to airlines, do you know what I want in an airline experience? I want no friction, right? A no friction experience is totally and completely forgettable.
Right.
Right. And so, you know, identifying where that friction is, identifying what's there. So like, let's talk about our client experience. Let's talk about our customer experience.
It's completely frictionless and everybody loves us.
We anticipate their needs. Everything is kept clear. So honestly, I lose a lot of sleep about our customer experience. Okay. I don't lose a lot of sleep about it, but I do lose sleep about it.
You're not the only one.
You know why I lose sleep about it?
No. Why do you?
You lose sleep about it because you don't think it's where it needs to be.
Yes, I do.
See,
that's not why you lose sleep.
I lose more sleep about it because of that. And then I think I'm not sure we'd be better off if it was where we wanted it to be.
What does that mean?
I mean, first off, you have what, go on?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go, because you would help me. If you
I was going to say, not what does that mean, but why do you say you don't know that we would be better off? Like, how would we not be better off if our customer experience was better?
So what about our customer experience do you feel like?
Oh, wow. You're going to
give me like the top 2 or 3 that don't embarrass us too much. No, feel free to embarrass us.
I don't think that we proactively communicate as frequently as we should. And I think, I mean, you've referenced this a few times in conversations this week. I feel like sometimes we're a black box. It's hard to tell where we're at as far as deliverables go and what's coming up next.
So what would you have to do to solve that so that it was where you wanted it to be? What would that look like? What would have to happen?
Wow. I mean, so more proactive communication. So having ways to trigger that and to trigger the team for that to happen, to trigger those notifications to the client. And then
so we would need more people.
Well, I don't know if more people is the solution, but okay, we would need
people
more people.
alone wouldn't solve it, but we would need more people.
Okay, more people.
By the way, why do we not communicate it sometimes? Well, because I'm so busy working on this, I don't have time to communicate it. So for me to get right, okay.
Yep.
More of certain types of people, right? So would we be better off? Would our clients be better off if we were 25% more expensive for the same thing, but we communicated better?
No.
Okay.
It wouldn't. No.
What's one of the reasons why, and please, team at Imagine, if you're listening to this, which you better be listening to this, this is not, like, if any of you bring this up when we're talking about this, trust me, I have all the rationale and arguments to explain to you why it's different from what I'm talking about. One of the things that makes us special is that we will change direction when we see the facts on the ground or the situation on the ground change.
Right.
Right. Well, if we're going to be communicating proactively, and like I know some people that are in professional services, they advise. I think they're exceptional at that type of proactive communication. But you know what they're doing? They're doing the same thing every time. And that's what they do. And that's what they do. And that's what they do. By the way, take a look at some of our quote unquote competitors where they have become more efficient. And what you're talking about there is efficiency. And then what happens when something pops up that's off the course that was planned? Everything short circuits.
Yeah.
Right. Where do we excel? So if you think about it, the type of person that we hire would have to be different. The way we're structured would have to be different. So you come into those places, and then I ask you, do people buy from us because of complete clarity about the status of everything? Is that why they buy from us?
No, it's not.
Why do they buy from us?
Because we have a unique take.
That's not why they buy from us. Because they got hard shit that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And they're not sure who else can do it or what needs to be done.
Yeah, I will say I like what you brought up about we'll shift. I can't remember the words exactly used, but that will shift as soon as we see the need to shift, because I know that's the place where we get the most customer appreciation, when those things happen and we're able to make adjustments.
I'll tell you a place where we get even more positive feedback.
What's that?
After they get frustrated because we told them something they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Think about the meeting we had yesterday. If quote unquote a low friction experience, making it easy, etc., were what we wanted, we would not have engaged in the conversation that they had, right? Which would have been a disservice. And you know what? The reason that they're going to work with us and they're going to continue to work with us and they're going to add the next project is because they know we're going to tell them what they don't want to hear.
Right.
Right. And you know what happens at a certain point? And I thought about this with, man, I'm giving away some of the store. Maybe we don't want to publish this episode. We have more relationships where we did really good stuff and it ends rocky. It like there's a piece of me that goes, you know what? I would really love it if more of our relationships ended on a high note.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, I would love it if all of our relationships ended on a high note.
Sure.
But I think, honestly, we would be creating less value for the customers that we work with if that were the case.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that happens too is there can be a shelf life to what we do. There is a point. It's like, why do great managers sometimes need to be fired to go to another team? Is it because they're not, they were a great manager, then all of a sudden it stops working, they get fired? Do they stop being a great manager? No, that's not the case, because they go to the next place. I mean, look at Bill Parcells, right? There was a time where, that aspect of it loses its effectiveness. It needs a little bit of a different game, et cetera. And so now what are there places that we need to improve? Absolutely, positively. Are there mistakes that we're making that we shouldn't be making? Yes, absolutely, positively. But here's where it comes to where customer experience gets screwed. And I would encourage people to read the book, 3 Disciplines of Market Leaders, I think is what it was called, by Fred Wursema, Michael Treacy, or read our blog post article on the 4 value proposition foundations. And that is, you have to anchor on a foundation. So our value proposition foundation anchor is superiority. We are going to bring you an insight that you can't get anywhere else. We're going to bring you an approach that you can't get anywhere else. We're going to solve problems that you can't do anywhere else. And by the way, the people that love us and the people that fire us all say the same thing. I've had the research done. We did things that we didn't think we were going to be able to do because we work with them. Now, people who love us said, and that was amazing. And the people who fired us said, and it got to the point where it just became a little bit too disruptive and we just needed to smooth things out. But yeah, it had they had a positive impact. Right. So superior is where we anchor ourselves. Operational excellence is not where we anchor ourselves. So should we allocate our resources to make sure that nothing ever gets to somebody late? Well, not if it takes a resource away from doing something unique, different, big. Should we, proactive, like all those pieces come about, and where people get screwed up in their customer experience is they mix their foundations. You can't be great at everything. Drew on their Let's Play RevOps show made a comment that said you can't fix everything. And the point that he was trying to make was no one has the time or resources to be able to fix everything.
Right.
And I talked to him after the show, and I'm saying, I don't think you know how wise and insightful that statement was, because even if you had all of the resources and time to quote unquote fix everything, everything can't be fixed, because fixing one thing that
impacts,
well, not just impacts, it's breaking something else.
Right.
Yep. And so if I'm fixing this, I'm making the decision to break that.
Yep.
Right. And if you try to be everything, then you get, you have high expectations around everything, and you're sure to disappoint. So some of it is saying, what is the expectation supposed to be? Right? What is the value proposition? How do we manage to the value proposition? Does Apple really? Apple has a reputation for experience and service. Does Apple really give good service? Is it really? You can't get a hold of anybody. You can't talk to anybody. I don't think that their support Twitter handle has ever actually tweeted anything, right?
You tried.
Henry Ford gave you great choice as long as you want it black. Any color you want as long as it's black, right? And so why is Apple a great experience? Because they are what they say they are. They do what they say they do. And so revenue operations job is to operationalize that. Because I'll tell you what, if you're growing and scaling and you're not operationalizing the experience, then you've got no chance. And to be the son of a bitch to take the platitudes and the puffery and the feel goods, because I'll tell you what, if you're in business, the customer experience decision is a business decision, right? Should you support the civil rights of your employees as a company? Yes, unconditionally, right? That is not a business issue.
Right.
Should you treat all of your people with respect? Yes, unconditionally. That is not a business issue. The experience that you provide, the experience that you strive to provide, that is a choice. It is a business issue, and it needs to be managed through that lens of the experience is a series of trade-offs. And that means some people will love it, some people will hate it. And if you're deeply involved in it, it's going to be like watching your kid play baseball. And everything wrong. Everything that's being done wrong, and you can't stand it, right? And then 3 parents come up and go, "Oh my God, your son was amazing behind the plate today," and you're like, "Yeah, no, he got lucky on that one." Because then, and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, thanks," right? And
it's my everyday with the team, Doug. I've never heard it articulated so well. That's how I feel.
And so, like, that's the place, and and I'll tell you, products have it easier than services do. But you know what? We deal with people on hard problems. They hire us to do hard shit.
Yep.
Part of our experience is we don't hide from the hard.
Right. Yeah.
Where do you put that in your customer experience? Right. Who disagrees that the business process needs to drive the technology?
No one.
But how many people actually stick to it?
They don't. Not a lot, because it's hard. Because it's the hard work. Yeah.
Because that's not what people want to talk about.
No. So I got a couple of key takeaways. Wow, this we didn't even get to like half of my questions.
Do we ever?
No. Usually we don't. Having a deep understanding of the customer and expectations and managing those expectations is key. And I think, our favorite. Your favorite saying, our favorite saying on the podcast, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think that's a question that people don't ask themselves enough. when talking about client experience, because we're always wanting to please the customer and we overcompensate there. We don't really talk about is the juice worth the squeeze when we're talking about client experience, customer experience.
So I'm going to give two more things as a takeaway. Number one is strive for your ideal, but always measure your customer experience on progress, because the more progress you make, the worse it'll feel. But then I really want to hit one question that you didn't ask,
which is,
when does customer experience start? Do you know what the answer is?
As soon as
Nope.
soon as they become aware of you.
Nope.
Okay. When?
It already did.
Why do you say that? I don't want to. Why do you say that?
Because our customer experience for someone who learns about us tomorrow already started. Everything that happened before, everything. By the way, you don't control your entire customer experience. Liquid expectations, look it up. Their experience with other things, the contact that they've had, who do they associate? Like it already happened. So like, where does it start? Like, this is not, customer experience is not a process. It is an experience.
There's your takeaway. It is
so,
not
so
a
by the way,
process,
for those of you that are
experience.
wondering, my point is it's already started. So, and by the way, you know when it ends?
Never.
When they die. When they die. How many people, by the way, sometimes leave us? Maybe they were really frustrated, and 2 years later, they're singing our praises. 2 years later, how many people leave with some disruption and 18 months later come back? How many times have I said, hey, guess who talked to us again? And you're like, they're coming back?
Yeah. We've had a few of those. We've had people reach out to us even just because, and it wasn't maybe a great experience when they left, reach out to us about questions or issues to get our take on it. So
we've had ones that, ended rocky, and all of a sudden, like 18 months later, we get 2 referrals from them.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So again, that experience, so again, it's already started and it doesn't end. So get on it.
Cool. This was fun.
There we go. We should do these when I'm salty more often.
We should.
It's not like it's hard to find times when I'm salty.
No, it's not. I'm just gonna pick those days from now on.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you on the next show.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. Customer experience is a business issue and should be dealt with properly. The biggest thing you should remember about this is that you need to know your customer, sometimes better than themselves, and what they want. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to go subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, and share the episode. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug or Jess about customer experience or anything RevOps related, email me at hannah@imaginellc.com or hit us up on Twitter @demandcreator. Until next time, remember, you can't solve your upstream problems downstream.